I've speculated on Breath of the Wild's timeline placement in the past, and we know in Zelda history that there are 3 possible timeline splits that Breath of the Wild could fit into. And with every piece of evidence for one, there seems to be counter evidence that points to another. It seems everybody is unsure about where the game could possibly fit in, and while I like to try to keep an open mind until we have official confirmation, there is one theory that has caught my attention. What if all 3 timelines converged on Breath of the Wild? Wouldn't that be something? But how is that possible? Wouldn't that create some radical time paradox? Well, yes. But with all the gathered evidence we've been able to find, there seems to be said paradox anyways. Well, what if I told you that this timeline convergence has happened in gaming before, and that it isn't even a new concept within the Zelda timeline? What if Breath of the Wild is a dragon break? So, what is a dragon break? Well, that term is a term specific to the Elder Scrolls series, but the Elder Scrolls history is a bit of a muddled mess as well. And Bethesda introduced the concept of the Dragon Break to explain all this away. Named a Dragon Break after the dragon god Akatosh, a Dragon Break is when time, instead of flowing in an orderly and linear fashion, becomes somehow non-linear and events stack on top of each other rather than progressing one after another. And multiple events warp and occur all at once. A Dragon Break can occur when a situation has a number of powerful outcomes depending on the choices made. And because of the severity of these outcomes, instead of just one occurring, time goes into flux and all possible outcomes occur simultaneously. Probably the best example of this in Elder Scrolls lore is an event called the Warp of the West, which is actually the end of the second game, Daggerfall, so warning, there are some spoilers ahead. At the end of Daggerfall, you, and that is to say the player character, comes into possession of a powerful item called the Totem of Tiber Septim, which will grant the possessor control of the powerful dwarven-made god known as the Numidium. You're unable to use it yourself and are instead tasked with the choice of delivering this powerful artifact to several factions that you'd met throughout the game. Depending on who you give it to, the ending of the game changes dramatically, and the outcome of the Iliac Bay region, where Daggerfall takes place, has drastic consequences. So Bethesda is all about player choice. And these multiple endings are just another way of giving us more player agency. But when it came time to develop a sequel, how do you explain away this issue? Especially one as big and consequential to the nature of the game lore and the game world. Do you pick one ending and call that one the canon ending? Do you try to make these choices inconsequential to the greater plot and hope inconsistencies are not present or not noticeable? Well, in an effort to make sure that the ending you choose as the player is still the true ending no matter what, a Dragon Break occurs. So now all 8 endings for the game occur simultaneously, with the wars waged and the kingdom being torn apart and yet unified, and it all occurs in 2 days with everybody failing to explain what really happened. Time paradoxes, just love them. How this happens is that the timeline splits apart with these 8 endings and then converges again at the end of the event. So in a way, they all happen at once, just on separate little splits that meet back up. The idea of a Dragon Break is pretty cool. It's not the first time this has happened in Zelda though. With all the time travel that goes on in the series, it shouldn't be any surprise that time paradoxes of any nature would happen. But let's look at Majora's Mask, the game where the most manipulation of time and time travel occurs. I know I've just made a video about Majora's Mask, and when I was playing through the game to get my brain going and collect footage, something occurred to me about the credits. Depending on what side quest in the game you complete, the credits scene will be more and more complete. If you don't complete these side quests to obtain all the masks, instead it will show you which masks you missed. But with the 100% ending, with all the masks, we see the effects that Link has had on the world, helping all the people of Termina, and all the loose ends get tied up. But this isn't possible if there isn't some sort of timeline convergence. It's not possible to do every side quest in a single 3-day cycle. So for all these endings to occur, it would mean that somehow Link's actions from multiple cycles converged onto a single timeline, and all happen. And this goes for the main quest and dungeons as well. Every one of the 4 dungeons frees one of the giants who will all show up to help you at the end. Although not impossible, it is super unlikely that you would manage to complete the entirety of the main 4 dungeons in a single 3-day cycle. So for them all to show up means that Link has completed the dungeons and freed them, but he hasn't done that on this cycle, and the time paradoxes hurt my brain. So in the multiple 3-day cycles, I believe in the end we get our resolution through all of these cycles coming together, and like Daggerfall's multiple endings, all occur in a dragon break, or at least a concept similar. But what about Breath of the Wild? You know, the game that's in the title of this video? Well, again, we have no idea right now where this could fit in with the 3 splits of the timeline, or if it even occurs before the split. It seems like there's evidence that supports yet nullifies all these sections of the timeline. But if there was an event that caused the timeline to break and all occur simultaneously and converge into one reunified timeline, then it would seem all would be accounted for, right? Well, what do you guys think? Do you guys think that this sort of paradox is likely? Or do you think Nintendo just hasn't thought of this in depth into it? I mean, we know they have a record of putting gameplay before the story, so it wouldn't surprise me if these Easter eggs were put in without much thought to the timeline placement. And yet, we're at a point where we've got things like Hyrule Historia, and it seems like Nintendo, and especially Aonuma, are putting a lot more thought into where these games can fit together. So maybe they have really thought about where this game could fit in the timeline. I mean, the story of Breath of the Wild seems very much centered around the world, or at least how you discover the story will be centered around exploring the world. And yet it seems that the gameplay is also closely tied with this exploration of the world. So, is it possible that they really did plan this? Well, we simply don't know. I mean, there could be an explanation for all of this. I guess we'll have to find out when the game comes out. Whenever that may be. Looking at March. Hopefully March. This is an amiibo thing. Does that happen? Okay. Hey you guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, then please give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to Zelda Informer for more great Zelda videos and podcasts and news and discussions and everything. And if you wanted to watch another Zelda video and maybe listen to what I had to say before about Majora's Mask, hey, you should click this video on the left and listen to me gush about why I freaking love that game so much. Or if you want to watch where I previously put Breath of the Wild in the Zelda timeline, you can watch this video here to see my Breath of the Wild timeline theory video. Anyways guys, thank you again for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye bye!